change gears from digital economy to matter that has been in the headlines of the news as well. The floods that have been witnessed in the coastal region of the country. And to discuss that and safety precautions, I'm joined by Ayub Chara, who is the acting managing director, and also Fred Majiwa. Ayub will be joining us by way of phone. Fred Majiwa is with us in studio. Many thanks, gentlemen, for making time for us. To start us off, probably, what is your role in as far as floods are concerned, or even an emergency situation is concerned?
Generally, we are emergency providers, St. John Ambulance. When we have these emergencies, maybe the impact of floods, maybe some people drown or things like that. And there are some people who need evacuation to the hospital. So that's where we come in, and we are usually a phone call away. You just give us a call and we'll rush to ensure that those people...
You say you are a phone call away.
Many
say it's not always accessible to get you guys.
No, it's very easy because we operate 24/7. Anytime you call us, you'll always get
Let's assume that there is a phone call of an emergency such as a flood situation in some area.
Yes.
What are some of the first things you do?
Normally, we say that when it comes to the things that is done first, the first thing that you do is what you can do within yourself to cope with the situation. And then if
that sounds philosophical rather than a response to an emergency.
No. You know, the best preparedness is when you can know what to do before you get an assistance. Because even when you call, for instance, for the support of St. John Ambulance, they will take some minutes before they arrive. And while they are on the way, there's a lot of things that you can do. For instance, you can keep the area safe and even keep yourself safe from further harm. So there's a lot that you can do. And you know, when you are not doing something, normally you will think 1 minute it's like 1 hour. But when you're doing something, you'll always feel that you've contributed to the whole process of ensuring that people get the safety that they need.
For someone who has been caught up in such a scenario, to a Kenyan probably who does not know the first things to do, what are some of the first things to do?
The first things to do is always to ensure that you prevent yourself from getting into the risk. Take a case, for instance, now we are expecting floods. And you know, most people lose their lives because they underestimate the strength of moving water. So they try to cross swollen rivers to reach home faster. But they don't reach home. Maybe they reach their Mecca faster than they thought. So the best way is to start preparedness by yourself, by preventing yourself getting into such risks. But sometimes they are unavoidable. You find yourself inside water, for instance, and there is nothing you can do. So even if you call our control center, the first thing they will do is to tell you what to do as you wait for the assistance.
And what are some of the things that you tell people to do as they wait for you?
For instance, when it comes to flood and you are caught right inside the water, you are advised that you should not walk in water that has increased to a level above your knee, because if it's past that, it can really sweep you downstream. And
let me cut you on that point and engage Ayub Chaka, who is the acting manager of the meteorological department. Ayub, to start us off, probably, what is the scale of the disaster in terms as the coastal area is concerned?
Well, we received very heavy rainfall over the coastal areas, and most of the stations were recording. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you very well, Ayub.
Okay, I can hear somebody else talking behind there. No, so I was saying that we received heavy rainfall over the coastal areas, especially around Lifi, Mombasa, and Kwale, where most stations are reporting well over 70 millimeters of rainfall. That's a lot of water. And if all that water collects within a short time in a drainage system, it can easily overwhelm it and therefore cause floods or even spill over to the roads, causing a lot of disruption of people activities. Now, in other parts of the country, like the northeastern parts of Mandela or Gia, we started getting a lot of reports of a lot of rainfall over there. And we're seeing it going on today, tomorrow, but going down on Tuesday.
Okay, you talk of the water volume and, of course, the expected floods across the country. These alarms often are given, I understand, largely within 24 hours. Is that timely?
Well, it depends on how fast the systems evolve, but we normally give about 24 to 48 hours ahead, lead time. Of course, it doesn't just give only a particular day, but it gives maybe about 3 days ahead. So really, the lead time may look maybe short to some activities, but also a bit long to some other activities. So it depends on what kind of activity we are talking about.
And which way do you give this information to the residents of a particular area that you will want to be extra cautious when it comes to an emergency as such? Is it through the media? Which way, basically?
Well, we use all manner of channels. We use the media, we use the social media, we use the government channels, like Disaster Operation Management Unit, and also the local communities. Yes.
And how has the response from the local communities and individuals who your message gets to been? Are they taking you seriously? There's the question of often people projecting that this could be not true.
Well, I must agree that our science is based on probability, and when you see the most likely event, we always make sure that we mention that so that people can take heed and maybe prepare. But as you mentioned, some people also ask us, what do you want us to do? Really, sometimes as a department, we are not able to really provide the assistance they are looking for, because if someone tells you, you want me to move away from here, where do you want me to go? That kind of thing. So really, sometimes we are caught up in a situation where we cannot really do much. But we make sure that the information goes up to the local administration and the local leadership through the social media. And there was a time we were doing SMS, but it has not done very well because the impact is not so much.
Okay, if you could kindly paint for us a picture of what the outlook in terms of the weather will be probably next week. What are some of the things that are headlining within your circles at the moment?
Yeah, as I mentioned, from today we expect to have heavy rains around the northeastern, that is basically Mandera and Wajir. Tomorrow they will go down slightly. I mean, Monday and Sunday it will be heavy, but on Tuesday it will be lower bit. In those parts of the country, that's northeastern. But we still have continuous, or rather heavy rains over western Kenya. That is around the Rift Valley, Sumu, Kakamega, Kisii counties. And on Wednesday, again, western Kenya, that's Kisii, Narok, Kisumu, we will expect to have heavy rains over there, but slightly less in the southern part, in the coastal areas.
And have you communicated this message of the expected rains to the residents of those particular areas?
We are always giving focus, and even our colleagues on the ground are giving updates every day for the next 3 days. So really, we have our own, the normal channels we are using to pass the information.
Okay, thank you. We'll still have you on way of phone. Let me engage Fred now. Fred, in the event of a far-flung area, such as the places he mentioned in Mandera, Wajir, do you have response teams as well in those areas?
What happens is that disaster cannot be handled by a single agency. So we normally work as multi-agency teams. So even if it occurs in an area that we don't have a response team, we can always activate our colleagues who have equipment and personnel around those areas so as to respond. But it's a responsibility that cannot be left, for instance, for St. John Ambulance alone. It requires all the agencies that are involved in disaster risk management. Yeah.
In the event that you are called to a place that is regarded as an emergency area, but now we'll get to the practicalities of what you do. What exactly do you do?
If we are called, for instance, there's an instance of flash floods in an area, what happens is the first thing is to prevent the people who have not been involved from getting into the dangers.
You isolate the area?
Yes, so that you only deal with those who are maybe either marooned or things like that. Because there are chances that there are people who, when they hear that some people are trapped inside, they will try to rush inside to go and save them. Then you end up with so many casualties than you estimated. So you block those people from going, and they only allow...
And for someone who has his family probably trapped somewhere, will they listen to you saying that you shouldn't go to save your family?
It's a difficult ball game, and these are some of the challenges that sometimes we meet, because people are driven by emotions, and it only takes reason for them to start thinking, because when you ask them, for instance, if you go to save them and then you become a casualty, you will be 3 casualties where you could have been 2 casualties. And because sometimes they do this when they see nothing is happening. But once they see their professionals who have been deployed in the area and are doing something to rescue their families, they will have comfort and give us chance so that we can proceed and do the rescue that is required.
And what is often the communication between you, the respondent, to these emergencies and the authorities such as the meteorological department?
You find that because alerts they give is to everybody, including ourselves.
But so there are no specifics rather
yes.
that is given to the first respondents?
Not really. The information is not different because what's given to the local communities that can be affected is the same information that we get. So because you find that, for instance, we are dealing with the communities that are at risk. The only difference is in the language. The local community will have it in a local dialect, but with us we may have it in the professional language. But it's actually the same thing. Yeah, so we will start acting on it. But you see, for instance, in Kenya, we already know that October, November, December is a period of short rains. So it can be enhanced or above normal rainfall. So it is something we are prepared for us from last year. It's only that if it's about to happen the way they issue the 24-hour alerts, it finds that the larger part of preparedness had been done.
Talking of alerts, do you often receive as well alarming fake alerts?
Of course, sometimes you get fake alerts, but they are not so common as you can say per se.
Do you still respond to even those fake alerts to see whether the situation is as
yes.
it is?
You see, there is something that people sometimes think and behave wrongly. That is, alerts is prediction. It may occur or it may not occur. If it doesn't occur, we should be happy that it has not occurred. But if it actually occurs, then it means we'll have to do something about it. That's why you find even sometimes Med Department give alerts, and then if, for instance, there is no enhanced rainfall, people start attacking them. But this is likened to like situation of a pregnant woman. You expect that delivery is going to be okay, and you start buying things to ensure that when the baby comes, all will be okay.
Okay, on that note, let me engage Ayub Chaka, who is the managing director, the acting managing director of the meteorological department. If you are still on phone and you can hear me, more than just the alarming warnings that you often give, what else that does, rather, the meteorological department do?
Of course, our business is to give predictions or rather focus, and we give focus to other sectors like aviation, water resource management, and others, generally all sectors of the economy. But in terms of alerts, whenever we see something which is going to affect or disrupt activities, we always make sure that we mention it. Now, as to whether people act on it, now that remains another issue, like my colleague there mentioned. It's up to the agencies which are involved to ensure that these things are implemented. But we do the focus and the alerts.
Which begs the question, are we prepared for such events, events that often need an emergency response? Well, talk to us about our preparedness as a country.
As the meteorological department, we are part of the early warning system in ways of giving alerts and updates of the same. And more often than not, we have seen our institutions doing fairly good, because unless sometimes they are overwhelmed, but they respond fairly well. Because I want to believe, or rather imagine, if people don't react the way when we give information, it can be a big disaster. But where I sit, I believe they do their best. Yes.
Okay, let me get to Fred. Fred, in the event that you, as a respondent, get to the field, you realize this is a flooded place. What do you do?
What happens is, if we get to a scene of a flooded area, we first of all survey to see whether there are people who probably are trapped inside who could be saved. and whether we have the right equipment to do that. So if we don't have the right equipment, maybe we need divers. That's where, for instance, we now escalate and call divers from the Kenya Navy or any other local professional who could be good at diving.
Does St. John have its own divers?
No, we don't have our own divers. We rely on external divers because our key focus in disaster response is to evacuate those who have